Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another D2D Spotlight. And today we're chatting with author Nathan Van Coops. Let me bring Nathan in here. There you go. That's like a fresh sunrise.
Hi, Kevin. Good to see you.
Hey man, I'm going to read your bio real quick. So Nathan Van Coops lives in St. Petersburg, Florida, on a diet consisting mainly of tacos. He writes speculative fiction adventure stories that explore imaginative new worlds, and his newest series, Kingdom of Vengeance, has new installments coming July 1st, and you can learn more at nathanvancoops.com. So there you go, new stuff. You've been working
entirely
hard.
accurate. Yeah, I have been. Yeah, it's a big month for me, getting something done.
Big getting something. Oh, that didn't update the URL there. I'll have to update that in a second.
Right.
So yeah,
trying to send people to Ernie Dempsey. Oh no, that
I
can't
know
be.
can't send them to Ernie. Although I did want to point out to we have former guest Michael Bunker. I got his face on my chest today. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to figure out why your site didn't save when I did that. So I'm gonna fix that right now, man. But how's everything?
We like Ernie too, so it's fine.
Yeah, we like Ernie. Ernie's all right. Ernie's all right. He's been a guest on the show too. He was a trooper, man. He came on when I was having some serious connection issues.
Yeah.
And he just kind of kept rolling with it. So
the last time I had him on a show, he actually had a power outage, and we had candlelit Ernie Dempsey.
Very nice.
It was my first ever candlelit episode of a podcast that we did, which was fun. So yeah, he'll go through any conditions. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So you now I read your bio, but what we all know you for is time travel books.
Yeah,
and that's a big favorite around the Draft Digital offices, man. Our CEO actually said he really enjoys your books. So,
that's high praise. That's great. Yeah, I love them. They're fun, and of course, all of us who grew up in sort of the Back to the Future era, and dreamed of hoverboards, knows what it's all about to be a time travel fan, and that's really what I was looking to write, because I was growing up, reading books, and of course, I would go out there and look on the bookshelves and try to find time travel adventure stories. And you get H.G. Wells, you get the classic stuff, and but it was hard to find something with that sort of a vibe, like the fun Back to the Future-ish, just like ongoing adventure story. Because I hate it when I don't hate it, but a lot of time travel stories are just somebody conveniently gets time traveled somewhere else. They have a whole story happen to them in that other location, and then they just come home at the end. And that's kind of the case with Back to the Future too, because they, he just spends most of the time in the 50s, but he also has a car that can time travel. Like he can have more adventures. It's not just a one-off. And that was what I was really excited about that idea. I was like, well, what else could he do? What else? Where else can he take the DeLorean?
Yeah, and it always kind of stinks because we tune into that kind of stuff because we want to know secretly what we're looking for is, how do I time travel?
Yeah.
So if all you did was rub a magic rock and you're in the past.
Yeah, exactly. That's the hard thing. It's like, and a lot of time travel novels just sort of do that hand wavium magic and poof, you're there. And there's not really a lot of science to it, or even, plausibility to any of it. That was one of the things that I really wanted to fix. And one of the reasons why people like my books is because I geeked out and went into the weeds about how a time travel system would work. Yeah. And so I think the whole reason why I have a career at all is because I spent so much time noodling it around and kind of coming up with a system that people were like, oh, that makes sense. Accounting for space in addition to time, and the fact that the Earth's moving and all this other stuff that most movies and fiction don't really account for. They just sort of have you magically show up. Yeah.
Right.
I remember getting really frustrated watching Time Traveler's Wife, and he just would appear naked, which was fine because his clothes didn't go with him. I'm like, that makes sense. But he would show up in a field of grass, and it was just like, well, who moved the grass for him? Because the grass was there, and then all of a sudden he shows up. Like, who moved the blades of grass so that the grass didn't end up fuse into his legs when he shows up?
His body.
Yeah, that sort of thing would annoy me. So I made sure to really deal with all those things in my series. And
so you literally got off into the weeds on that whole thing.
I literally went into the weeds. Yeah.
How's it handled in your stories? How do you handle that?
I have a really fun system. It's called anchor-based time travel, where basically the idea is that, because like the big problem, of course, is that if you were to time travel from where you are right now to 3 days from now or 3 days in the past, and just relocated in time and space, you would just end up in outer space, floating around, because the Earth has moved and you're still there in the same location. And so in order to actually travel in time, you have to move incredible distances. Or in my case, I decided, well, what if you time travel in relation to something that's not time traveling? So you have to like anchor yourself basically to, in your case, maybe a vehicle or like a chair or whatever it is. But even then you run into problems, because like I time travel out of my chair right now to 3 days from now. You know, the chair could have moved. And like the cushion on the chair is no longer pushed down. So I'm going to end up with like chair stuck in me. So you got to be kind of careful about like what you're touching, what you're around. And so what I did is I came up with a sort of imaginary particle called a gravitite. And things that have gravitites in them can time travel. Things that don't can't. So basically it's like anything you want to take with you, your clothes, objects, things like that. You have to be able to put this particle in there and kind of infuse it, and then it can go with you for the ride. And then, or then sometimes you take those things back out. You can degravitize things and then leave them behind. And it makes for some fun, like spatial play that I get to do. Like sometimes my hero is trying to chase someone and doesn't want to, go the entire way, follow their car. He can just like touch the car, time travel to where the car will be in the future, and then just skip over all the interim travel parts.
Yeah, that's handy.
Yeah, you just skip over a lot of like
teleportation.
The plot problems of like, oh, well, how do I get him there? Like, let me just instantaneous travel him there, and it's a little easier for the plot. So yeah. I had a lot of fun with it, and it's once people understand the basics of it, they're on board. They're like, oh yeah, this works. And
it does. It's really kind of interesting when it comes to that sort of fiction, because there's that you're trying to get people to suspend their disbelief, right? But if you can present them with the rules, even if the rules may not necessarily abide by the laws of physics, it's they'll gloss over it as long as you're obeying your rules.
Right. As long as it's internally consistent. Yep, exactly.
Right, internally consistent. That's a much better way of what I was trying to say.
Yeah. I think about that because like the movie Interstellar is that way. Like people are like, oh no, the physics of this wouldn't work. I'm like, yeah, but according to their own rules, it works. So that's why I'm so satisfied with that film, is because they made the rules and they stuck to them. Same with Harry Potter or anything you make, as long as you stick to your rules, you're good.
Right. So ever since Avengers Endgame, the big conversation about time travel is how nobody gets it right. And what sort of model of time travel do you subscribe to?
So I subscribe to a fractal multiverse. So it's
I should have known you'd already put thought in.
You know who you're talking to, Kevin. Like I spent years on this stuff. So basically there's a couple different styles. There's linear time travel, where people like go backward and forward in one line, and nothing they ever really do ever changes anything, because if you go back to the past, you were always in the past, and no matter what you do, it's still going to equal the same results, because maybe you're going to go back in time and cause the thing that eventually leads to the future. And so like trying to change things around is a moot point. Or you can do sort of like the magical erasing version of like Back to the Future, where things just get erased. And I never really bought into that. I was like, well, why would it get just because you did this thing, that stuff never happened? What I buy into more is the idea of this kind of parallel alternate universes, where you go back and change things. If I go back in time and I say, Kevin, come along with me on this adventure, and we go off and do something that we never did before. Now we're living in a universe where that happened. But the problem is this universe still exists. Like I'm still gone, you're still gone. Everyone's like, what happened to Kevin? And like, well, that's because Kevin's over there in parallel universe B. But problem is there might already be a parallel universe B Kevin, the original, over there. So now there might be two of you. And now you've got to be like, well, man, parallel Kevin's already dating my girlfriend, and I got to off him to like get back to my life. There's a lot of complications that happen in time travel. And all of a sudden you open this Pandora's box, and once you let all that stuff out, it's really hard to get it back in again. So one of the things that I really wanted to do with my series was like, just keep the box open, deal with the mess, and like not neatly sweep anything under the rug, and just understand like what the absolute chaos of what the world would be like if there was a whole bunch of time travelers bouncing around.
Well, yeah, it's harder to come across anything that adds complications to your story than having that sort of open concept about time travel and the mess that comes out of it. Okay, so that begs the question, man. How do you keep all this straight? Do you have like special software you use?
I have definitely had to learn to be more of a plotter. When I first started writing the first book, I was just let's just see where this goes. And I got about 8 chapters in, and just fizzled. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then eventually I kind of, thought through it all for a long time, really got my rules down, and then came back to it and then wrote some more. And then I have 4 books in that original series and a couple of novellas. My most recent one was fun because I did it from a linear standpoint, like from the point of view of an FBI agent who was trying to figure out what was happening, but she wasn't a time traveler, and she was seeing things happen that didn't make any logical sense whatsoever, and having to piece it together as a normal person. And I thought that was fun to add on. But I think I've just gotten used to it over time, and now I'm much more of a plotter. I definitely lay things out, make sure they're consistent. I have to re-listen to my own audiobooks frequently just to make sure I'm not missing something major. Characters that I maybe, exist in a different timeline than they should have been, and I need to not have them where I have them. There's some issues for sure you got to watch out for.
Well, do you like a wiki or something? I mean, you're listening back, but you're not like keeping some sort of document or anything.
Well, I mean, I write in Scrivener, and I do have some notes in there, of course, and I have. I'm actually branching out now. I'm going to be starting a new series, kind of in the same universe. I have the idea of writing a kind of a PI mystery series, but that exists in this in Times Like These world, and that's going to be a lot of fun. But again, I have to go back. If I use existing characters and things like that, I've got to be real careful about what year they existed and when.
Or you altered time. See, that's the beauty of time travel is those aren't mistakes. Those aren't continuity errors. That's time travel.
Right, yeah. And the one nice thing, the nice saving grace about having a parallel universe is if anything happens and people were like, no, that didn't happen. You're like, well, they're not in our timeline. They're not in this timeline. I never specifically say that the timeline they live in is anywhere related to ours. And I think I made the mistake at one point in one of the books. I'm pretty sure they refer to the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. And of course now that never happened, so I'm like, oh, dang it. As soon as they canceled that, I was like, I knew this is going to be a glitch. And it's hard to predict the future. It's very challenging as an author to have an accurate sense of what the future will bring, especially when you have things like a pandemic come along and just totally throw you off.
Right. Yeah. That's been a challenge this time writing. I try to keep it, it's like next 15 minutes kind of stuff, but mentioning the pandemic on my writing, I thought I might get it. But it's impossible to avoid at some point. I mean, are you dealing with that in your current fiction?
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up a little bit. I didn't quite catch all of that, but
sorry. Yeah, we're running some technical goofs. So I'm asking, and hopefully, are you dealing with the pandemic in your all, or are you walking up for it?
As far as in the fiction, in the storyline.
Yeah, in your current stuff.
I think it'll have to get mentioned at some point. Maybe just as a reason. Actually, I've thought about it as like, I've been thinking a lot about why people would live in specific times if you're a time traveler. Because like we as linear people only have one time to choose from, but we can always choose where we live in space. We can relocate to a different state or a different country or somewhere else on the planet. Go live on the space station if you really want to. But we're stuck in one time. Whereas people who are time travelers would have the option of living in different times. And I've thought a lot about why people would go and live in certain decades and what it was about certain decades that would attract them, what they'd be able to put up with. I think it would be very difficult for time travelers from the future to come back past a certain point because of how they would perceive our culture and the issues with it. Things that if we were to go back and try to live in the 50s or 60s, before the civil rights movement, for example, like it would be incredibly difficult to put up with that amount of, racism and some of the issues that we've since then, faced a little better and at least acknowledged. Like, it would be really challenging for a time traveler to go back. I think that we tend to gloss over a lot of the past and go back and look at things with, rose-colored glasses. But if you were back in the 20s and through the 40s, like, the whole place would smell like an ashtray. I mean, everyone was smoking all the time. And it was just, I think that we get used to where we live. And I think that one of the reasons why you wouldn't have nearly as many time travelers as the future as we think we would is because of the inability to tolerate that for long periods of time. People would probably come back to our time and be like, 2020? No, not a chance. It's kind of like off season for tourism from time travel.
I could see that. That would be. I could see plenty of eras in my lifetime that would just be skipped. The 90s. Like, there's not even that hot of a music scene at that point. It's like there's no real reason to be there. So I want to real quick tell everybody, if you're watching, and hopefully you are watching on Facebook and YouTube, respectively, that if you I'm just trying to find the little thing, go ahead and ask your questions in the comments and they'll pop up, and later in the last 15 minutes of the show, which is coming up in about 15 minutes now, we'll get to your questions live. So make sure you do that and ask Nathan anything about time travel, about whatever you want. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your process. We kind of talked somewhat about it. You use Scrivener. That's always good. So what is your kind of daily routine when it comes to your writing? Or do you have a daily routine?
I think it obviously depends on the phase you're in. Like, a lot of people don't think and talk about the pre-writing phase of writing. A lot of times we focus on like what your writing routine is once you have actually started writing. And you happen to catch me right now where I'm in between. I'm publishing one thing. So I'm already past the writing phase. I've been finishing revisions. I'm actually at the final proofreading stage now, just about to publish. And then my next book is still in the idea outlining plotting phase. And because it's book one of a series, it's taking a little longer because I'm actually going to start to think about, hey, what about other books in the series? Like, how much of this series can I plot out in advance? Maybe can I kind of loosely outline a couple books? So my process right now is, of course, just reading. It's also a new genre for me. So I'm reading a ton. And it's just taking a lot of research and fun research. I'm reading a lot of other books in the genre, which is, part of the process. Of course, it's an important part of the process. You can't just dive into a brand new genre, expect to be good at it without...
Challenge accepted, Nathan.
But for me, it's like it's actually a fun part of the process right now because I'm trying to write like a private investigator type book. I'm watching a lot of Magnum PI right now. I am, watching like Rockford Files and like old PI TV shows. Like all this classic stuff, watching some really good car chases. And so that's just fun.
Is this going to be is this speculative fiction too? Is it?
It will be
involve time travel and that sort of thing.
It is, yeah. So that's going to be fun. That's
cool. I have a confession to make, man.
What's that?
When I first met you, and we met at NINC in St. Pete's a few years ago now, I just jumped to the conclusion that you wrote like beach detective type stories. That's just what I figured you wrote. So the fact that you're starting to finally write some PI stuff.
I could, and he actually will live in St. Pete probably for the most of it.
Well, there you go.
Finally coming around to what you already knew about me. And
well, that's time travel.
See, you had secretly met the future me, and I just didn't know it.
Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, and then there are a lot of people writing it. It's a very popular genre. I think the kind of beach detective idea is solid. Time travel is a small niche. It's not a super lucrative subgenre of sci-fi. Yeah. So I mean, I do well in it as far as people who read time travel know my books, but there is room for branching out into some of the other bigger mystery thriller categories, and that's kind of where I'm headed, I think, because my other series have gone the other direction. I've gone into like kind of YA steampunk with one of my series, and then my other series is a completely brand new genre mashup of modern medieval Arthurian knights meets Mad Max war cars. So it's a really different. I mean, where the Venn diagram is, there's a lot of circles that intersect right at that point, but I've put a pin where no one else has put a pin in that diagram for that series. But I've had a blast doing it. That's the book I'm about to publish is the second book of that series, and I've actually added in Western into that as well. So that is
the good thing about time travel stories, though. It's like you can branch. Like I sometimes feel like I'm a little locked in on what even though I'm writing about history, I feel like there's only so much I can cover. But with yours, you could do anything.
Yeah, one of my books, my second book I ever wrote, the Chronothon. One of the reviewers called it the sampler of time travel because it's a time travel adventure race where they go back in time and then they just have each level of the race is a different time period. So they go from ancient Egypt all the way through like Pirates of the Caribbean, the Wild West. Like they just are touring through kind of like the Amazing Race. Each level takes them through different eras of time. They're on the Hindenburg at one point. So it's really fun. But he's like, well, you don't have to pick a particular time period. Just have all of them and just throw them all in one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The smorgasbord of eras.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing with genres with my Kingdom of Vengeance series. I'm like, what? You like this genre? Sure, that's in there too somewhere. It's just a big genre mashup.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's fine. I lost the train of thought. Actually, I don't know where we were going.
I derailed you. I do that to people. I'm sorry. So how do you? So you're working on new stuff, and so the vibe I'm getting, and then you tell me if I'm wrong here, is that you once you've published, you go into another cycle of sort of research and digesting material and that sort of thing. So how do you keep the fires stoked between releases? Because I know rapid release is kind of one way people make money. So how are you kind of keeping the income rolling when you're researching?
I think it's a lot of, I use the analogy a lot of times that basically we've all got a juice machine. That's our author business is this juice machine. And you either need a lot of oranges or you need to squeeze a lot of juice out of the individual oranges that you have. And while I think probably it might be better to just have a lot of oranges, some of us don't have the capacity to do that. Some of us have to just spend time on grow one big juicy orange and then put that in and then juice it really well. And then, but over time you learn, because of that, you learn to kind of tune the machine to be more efficient. So like my 4-book series, the time travel series, is probably my biggest earner. And it funds the rest. Because I have that series and it's got a couple novellas in there. There's a lot of stuff. The audiobooks do well because sci-fi is a great genre for audio. Because of those options, it gives me the chance to do other things and experiment until I land on another hit. So that's part of it. I am learning to write a little bit faster. This book, I started it in January 1st, I want to say, and I'm putting it out by the end of June. So that's 6 months, which is probably the fastest thing I put out, which would give me time to write another one theoretically this year if it wasn't for the fact that I'm having a baby in a couple of weeks. My wife is pregnant.
Congratulations, man.
A new kiddo on the way. We're a little over 3 weeks out from our son arriving. So that's gonna slow things down a little bit in terms of the process. It was also a great fire to be lit underneath me, though, in terms of finishing this book and getting it out before July. Sometimes having a life event like that is a great motivator for you to be like, well, whatever you're at now, just ratchet up this machine and get it going a little faster and spit this book out.
Nothing sets a fire under you like that, man. Okay, I haven't talked to anybody at Draft Digital about this, but I'll make you an offer. If you name your kid Draft Digital, you will pay for a year's worth of diapers.
That is an excellent offer, actually. Diapers are incredibly expensive right now.
Draft Digital Van Coops has a nice ring to it. Just saying.
Yeah, I will throw that up to the wife and see what she does with it.
All right.
Nothing's set in stone yet, so it's a possibility.
Excellent. I'm going to wait right here.
We got a slim chance.
Very slim chance. Free year of diapers, though.
Yeah, it's a solid offer. Better than naming your kid COVID or something, which I've heard that's been happening.
I know that.
I would rather have Drafted Digital Van Coops than
COVID Van Coops.
Yeah.
That actually sounds kind of cool, though. COVID Van Coops.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to name a character in one of my books, COVID Van Coops.
You
Murder the crap out of him, too. So now what's your kind of daily, I mean, we asked about a little bit about your daily routine, but like, do you have like a daily target or something you aim for when you're writing?
It ranges when I'm writing. You know, I like to have at least 1,000-word minimum just per day, just so there's always something getting done. But mostly I can get a little more, you know, a productive day for me, 2,500, 3,000 words. And then I start to burn out a little bit after about that. After about 3K, I've had days when I've written more. I've had 5,000 word days, but it's rare. It's also because I'm not exclusively full-time at this either. I do this a few days a week. And then I also have another business that I'm also self-employed with, where I give exams to people who want to be airplane mechanics. I've been in aviation for a lot of years. I've been a flight instructor, mechanic. I take care of some planes. So I have an aviation business as well. So that's nice, where I'm able to kind of balance both. Right now, there's not too much of that going on because flight schools and mechanic schools, a lot of them are closed. So it's just been the writing right now. But having multiple streams of income is nice. Take some of the pressure off here and there. And being your own boss is great. So even when I am doing both, on days when I'm doing that job, I still give myself like a 3-hour lunch break where I can go get some tacos, sit down, get my words done, and then also be able to just shift gears and go back and go work on something. But the nice thing is now with Bluetooth, and I can be listening to podcasts like this one, or, you know, Word Slinger or something like that, and be learning and kind of keeping my head in the game, even though I'm putting spark plugs in an engine, or, you know, doing an overhaul or something like that. So it's a nice lifestyle to be living.
Yeah. It is nice. And I'm on board with you with the having something else that kind of takes the pressure off. You know, I think too many authors are too concerned with, if I can't go full time, then I've failed. And I think that's not necessarily true. Like I don't feel like a failure. I could go, you know, full time and do nothing else. I mean, I certainly make enough money to do it, but I like the variety of what I do, and I love the company I work with. And I think you have a similar, like you have something you love. So
I enjoy my job. I've always enjoyed aviation. It's one of my first passions, and people have to remind themselves that, like, writing is not the only gig. It's not the only thing that's worth doing. You know, there's a lot of worthwhile professions out there that are fun, that give back to the community, that, you know, give you an outlet that's not just all so mental. It's great to be creative, and it's awesome to have a creative outlet, but I also do enjoy sort of the hands-on physical work. There's so many different ways you can kind of make this lifestyle work. And for the most part, most authors prior to this, other than the really big names, very few authors only just did the writing in traditional situation either. Like before indie publishing, I don't know why indie authors think that they have to be full-time all the time when traditional authors aren't. There's a lot of them that have teaching jobs or professors or doing other things as well. So I'm not sure where that kind of idea originated.
It's that idealized version of the author's life, sitting in a study in a leather chair and smoke jacket and a pipe, you know.
Yeah.
If you haven't,
I can see you in a smoking jacket and pipe.
I could do it.
Yeah, I could see you pulling that off. Many leather-bound books in your environment.
I really kind of do want to do the pipe.
Yeah.
Like I like pipe smoke and everything, but I would probably just chew on it, you know, like Pop Hemingway or Popeye or something.
Just to have the way of, you know, expressing yourself and looking contemplative when someone says something, you can ponder it with your pipe. Yeah.
Exactly. Pipes are for pondering. So we're here at the last 15 minutes. And we've had one or two questions pop in, but I'll pop those up, and we'll kind of keep this rolling. I want to say hi to everybody. We got Tori Element says howdy, gents. There you go. Yeah. Hi, Tori. James Russell. I'm going to say Glashan. I'm sorry, man. James says hi. We also got Richard says cheers. So we got folks tuning in. Good to see that. Now, Alyssa has asked a question, and she caveats this with her next comment, which says, hopefully you don't have to give away any of the, quote, secret sauce to answer this question. So what are some of the tropes that readers expect in time travel?
Okay, that's a good one. First off, you should identify which subgenre of time travel you're in, because if you're in time travel romance, for example, that's kind of like its own category. And there's a couple of other subgenres in time travel as well. One is the sort of mental time travel, like to go back and relive your own life over again. I know Sean Inman's good at that. There's books like Replay by Ken Grimwood, are famous. Yeah, great book. That's a particular type of time travel where you just have one time traveler and they go back and they do something over again, and they're usually the only one who can time travel. So that's going to be a little bit different than if you're writing like a multiverse of time travel like I'm doing, where all kinds of people can time travel. So identify which subgenre you're in and make sure that you're reading the books that are like the one you want to write, first of all. That's always advice for anybody, I guess. But as far as other tropes, I think you should clearly identify whether you're a single timeline or whether you're a multiverse, whether your heroes can change the future or can't change the future. Those are things you've got to really nail down.
Don't be like Back to the Future and do both at the same time.
There's some major plot holes in there, but it's fun. And of course, you have to keep it fun. And you have to kind of find where the line is, where your readers will take that leap and be like, okay. I've had occasional complaints where I had a reviewer early on and they're like, well, yeah, but you didn't account for the amount of air that would like be sucked into the vacuum that they left behind and how they would have to displace that air when they arrive. I'm like, yes, I thought about it. I understand what you're saying, but I just didn't want to go there. I had to like draw the line somewhere on how detailed I was going to get in my time travel method. And that's the other things, like understand your own time travel method, because time travel readers, especially science fiction time travel versus fantasy time travel, have a different level of investment in the science part. So if you're going to put it in science fiction, make sure that the method works and has some sort of at least sciencey sounding background to it. Do a little bit of research there. If you're writing fantasy time travel where there's magic involved, just go nuts. You got a time traveling magic dagger, whatever. We can just magic over anything. So that's a little easier. If you've got druids or somebody doing your time travel for you, I wouldn't stress about it too much. I would mostly just concentrate on the setting in that case, the environment, what people are trying to get out of it. Are they really in it for the romance element? Are they really in it for the action adventure? Try to find what other genres you're working with and make sure you do those really well. And then the time travel becomes just a vehicle for the story. So hopefully that's helpful, Alyssa.
No, I think that helped me. So I'm sure it helped Alyssa. We got a hey with 2 exclamation points.
Oh, Dara. Yeah, she's
that means that she's very excited.
Yeah, that's extra exclamation points that we communicated before.
So this is similar to the tropes question, but what are some of your personal tropes? Like, what are your routines? Like, is there something you do to get yourself in the right headspace, or is there, do you drink a certain, beverage or wear a hat, or is there anything like that going on while you're writing?
Maybe. Well, for me, it's about an idea, and usually, if it's a time travel idea, a lot of times it's a circular idea. When you're writing, this is a good idea anyway in any writing, where you look at your opening image of your story and you look at your closing image, and they should be kind of mirrors of each other. The only thing that's really changed is the character has grown as a result. Hopefully the reader has had this amazing experience, but you kind of always end up back where you started. The basic hero's journey is you end up back home, but you've brought back this gift of having had this adventure. In time travel, you have a little bit of bonus there where you can literally end up back where you started, in time as well as space. So there's a lot of times I think in circular ways when I'm trying to write a story. How will things be different but the same? The character's wants, needs, things like that. And so a lot of plotting for me and outlining a book is figuring those things out. And just like with any writing advice, figuring out what your character's want is, what their need is, helps you determine what the dark night of the soul is. Because like whatever they want, they've obviously not gotten it. They've gotten the opposite of that, and that's why they're down here in the dark night of the soul, and that's what they have to. And they have to get over their flaw to get back to where they want to be. So understanding structure is. I'm a major story structure nerd. If you can't tell already, but I will. Yeah, I will nerd out all day about story structure. So for me, it almost always comes back to understanding your genre expectations,
right,
and understanding what your reader wants before you write the book, and knowing that you're going to deliver. Because once you have the ending and you know that it's going to hit all these tropes, along the way, the structure is sound. The house isn't going to fall down when they walk into it. You can do whatever you want at that point. You can fill in all the details differently. You can make everything fancy and pretty and do something completely different than anyone else has ever done. As long as the basic bones of the story work, you're all set.
Again, it comes back to, internal consistency, right?
Yeah.
As long as everything is working, everything works the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
That you can go far afield. So Dara has asked, this is a question specifically for your work. Are you planning on doing any more with Ben's daughter?
I am actually. In the next book I write, she will be making an appearance as an adult. She's not the main character, but I'm actually going to be writing Ben Travers' son. Ben Travers is the main character in my series, and his son is actually going to be the main character in the next book I'm writing, and his sister, Piper, will be a key character as well. We may see some point of view from her perspective as well. I'm not sure, but I'm expanding the family tree a little bit, because the main character has kind of gone through a lot of adventures. We've had 4 books from his point of view, and now he's like a dad with kids, and there's only so much danger you can put a dad and kids. Like as a dad now, I'm like stressed out about it. Like if a kid's in danger, or if there's like stories, like it affects you differently being a parent. And
I can totally see that.
I'm more comfortable now putting a younger character in mortal peril and having it not be as much of an issue.
Yeah. When I was writing YA fiction, that was a problem I kept having. Was I had these young characters who were constantly facing like death and like big ethical and moral questions and stuff you don't want kids to have to go through. So
it's tough.
It's tough. I mean, how do you balance that? So you're creating a whole new character. Mm-hmm. Have you basically has that original character just run Ben? Has he run his course then?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's still interesting, and it's possible that I could still write more from his point of view, but I really want to kind of just explore other characters in the world. The world that I've created is so much fun that I want to spend more time in it, but I also want to be able to have an outside perspective. I want another character to be able to look at that character and maybe explain them in a little bit differently. Like if we see our character through the eyes of his son now, it's going to be a completely different point of view than we've had being inside his head. So I think I'm going to have fun with that, just sort of playing around with the family dynamics of because one of the fun things about it is having a family full of time travelers is a mess. Like I said, like just the lifestyle that you live and having to understand where everyone is all the time, and people can literally disappear for years and just not be on the face of the planet because they've just relocated in time. There's things that family dynamic can do that I've never seen done before. And I'm really excited to write it because I'm always trying to write things that I haven't seen done. And it's not the best marketing advice. I don't recommend it in terms of trying to then after go find other books that it's like. You try to go find some comp authors and you're like, let me find some Facebook targets. No one's writing this. And then you just have to basically start over from scratch. But I'm having a good time.
You got to write it so well that eventually people have to target you. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So you brought up the dirty word, the author swear word, which is marketing. How are you handling your marketing?
Poorly, probably. No, I think I do all right. I do a lot of Amazon ads. I think I'm pretty good at my book descriptions, and I have great cover designer. I use Demonza. and they have been nothing but amazing for me. I really like them as a cover designer, and so I think nailing those core things are really huge. Getting a good cover, obviously, writing a good book is number one, but actually, it's not number one. It's actually like number three, because no one will ever read your great book if they don't like your cover and they don't like your ad.
People forget that, by the way.
Yeah,
and that's like to bring up. There's multiple steps before anyone even reads the book.
Yeah, people have to find the book, like the description of the book enough to read the book, and then having a good book matters.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter how good your book is if no one reads it. So, yeah, I don't know why. I guess we always say that's the first thing, but it comes first. Writing the good book comes first, but it's not the first thing on the reader's journey. Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of getting those things nailed down. I had the privilege of getting to talk to a class the other day who was like, fifth graders, and they were writing books, which is amazing. It's so cool that one of these kids who's like a fifth grader already had several books on Amazon. And just, or I don't know if he was through other distributors too, but he had this stuff up, and I'm like, that's amazing. If we had started when we were that age and actually had learned, it's a brutal crucible to go through, but I was able to explain to them a little bit that, like, you wrote the book. Granted, at that age, it may not be that great, so maybe don't spend a lot of time on it, as far as cover design, all that stuff. But you have to get those essential, because he was asking me questions about like Amazon ads, like, oh, do you think Amazon ads are worth the investment? I mean, this is a fifth grader, and I'm like, yes, but with an asterisk. Like, you got to make sure all this other stuff is right first before you start throwing any money at something, because they're
not magic.
they will get people to the page, but it won't make people buy your book if they don't want to. And so that's kind of a big caveat to any marketing question. It comes back to understanding your genre expectations. Did you meet them? Did your ad copy say that? And does your cover match? That's probably the most important thing, which I concentrate on.
Yeah. Now, I apologize for the sound of rain hitting me right now.
Oh, that's okay.
That's what's going on. We got a question from Tori. It says, so how important do you think readers consider the technical aspects of time travel method versus it just being a thing the character can do?
So again, I think this comes down to, who do you want as a reader? Which part of the genre are you going after? Are you going after, like, take a look at your book. Is time travel the main point of the book, or is time travel a trick that you use to employ to, like, make the rest of the book work? If you're watching Star Trek, the one from 2009, for example, it's a space fleet movie. I mean, it's a Star Trek film. It has time travel in it, but it's not necessarily about time travel. It's about, a reboot of the Star Trek universe. So you've got to really write a really great Star Trek story to make that work, which they did. It's a phenomenally well plotted and paced movie. It's probably one of the best ones they've done, because of there's just no slow parts in that film. But if you're watching X-Men Days of Future Past, for example, again, it's a great X-Men movie. It has time travel in it, and you get to see the 70s, and you're using it as setting, using it as scenery, things like that. I couldn't tell you exactly how. I think that was mental time travel. I think Professor X just like zapped Wolverine back into the past on that one. So it worked. Like, it made sense within the world. Professor X has telekinetic powers, and Wolverine looks the same in the 70s as he does now. So it doesn't really matter. It works within the bounds of the story, but it wasn't the main part of it. If you're going to write a book that's about time travel, if you want to be like, the main thing about this is for people who like time travel, the more towards that end of the scale it is, the more technical the time travel needs to be, in my opinion, because you're going to spend so much more time doing it. My time travelers don't travel just once per book, or twice per book. They time travel the entire way through it. They use it for things like drying off. They'll just like be soaking wet and like jump into the future 2 seconds.
Casual time travel.
And all the water will fall because the water will stay where it is, and then they'll show up dry. They use it that casually in this universe that I have to really think through the physics of it. So that's my answer, is like, the more towards the time travel end of the genre spectrum you are, the more technical it is. If you're mostly a romance that just happens to involve time travel, concentrate on the romance part. And do all your marketing towards the romance, design your cover towards the romance. If you're more time travel-y, put a clock, make sure there's like some sort of time travel element on the covers. That's another thing. Time travel is hard to put covers on because there's no commonly accepted look.
Right.
If you go look at time travel books, they all look different.
Yeah. For all the tropes of the genre itself, there's no trope for the cover.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, well, we're at the end of our time, man, which is ironic. Consider we traveled forward to 12:45 Central.
Yeah.
But I want to remind everybody, go check out Nathan and his work at nathanvancoops.com, where you can find out he's got a beautiful website, and I was going to try to share it, but something has glitched, so we're not going to do that. But go check him out there. And since you are here watching us on either YouTube or Facebook, make sure you subscribe to us on both. You can subscribe to us at youtube.com/draftedigital or facebook.com/draftedigital. It's funny how those URLs worked out. And make sure you bookmark D2D Live, because you'll get more of these kind of broadcasts. If you're listening to us on the podcast, thank you for that. And you can find these live broadcasts at D2DLive.com. Nathan, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. It's always fun to talk to you, man. And I hope we do get a chance to see each other in Ink this year.
I hope so too, Kevin. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you. I'll do it anytime. This is
anytime.
Been a blast. Been a blast.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.
So long.